Now, Bill Nye the Science Guy seems to be rather disappointed in CNN. Hey man, welcome to the club. I think we're all disappointed in CNN. Now, this specific instance comes from the fact that he was bothered by the idea that they continue to bring him on to argue with climate deniers. Now, this happened to be climate denier William Happer. Now, I want to show you this clip of Nye basically calling CNN out for bringing on climate deniers so they can have debates. Let's take a look.
Bill, tell us what your reaction is to what he's saying there, and what's the most prolific misconception about climate change?
What he claims to not understand is the rate. It's the speed at which we're adding carbon dioxide. And I will say, much as I love the CNN, you're doing a disservice by having one climate change skeptic and not 97 or 98 scientists or engineers concerned about climate change. What you got to get is the speed at which things are changing.
I am very upset with the CNN. Although I love the CNN, I got to say I'm disappointed. You're doing a disservice. Look, man. Hey, if they bring in 97 scientists, 98 scientists to one climate denier, well, look, man, you're actually going to have an accurate debate. Well, they don't want that. That's not good for CNN. It's not good for the advertisers, which are the big fossil fuel companies, by the way. So, look, maybe Bill should know by now that they didn't bring him on to talk about science. The only reason they bring on Bill Nye is to have him fight climate deniers like William Happer. And the reason they do that is because he gets ratings. That's what that's about. So look, they get the ratings, and then they can appear to be unbiased about the issue of climate change. What, liberal? No, we're not liberal. How dare you even try to say we're liberal? Look, we bring on William Happer so he can spew his bullshit talking points. Oh, we're not liberal. No. We're down the middle. We are centrist. We are straight down the middle, man. You can't be down the middle when it comes to facts. Again, Bill Nye should know this, okay? But somehow climate change has become a political issue. It seems to be a political issue in America, whereas most of the world's like, yeah, climate change is happening, and right now it's doing damage, and it's going to do more damage. Maybe we should fucking do something about it. In America, we're having a so-called debate on whether or not it's real. Insane. And look, again, somehow people seem to think, again, this is a political issue. It shouldn't be a political issue. It's not a left-right issue, okay? It just so happens that one side seems to want to accept facts and evidence, and the other side doesn't want to. And the other side, of course, will cherry-pick arguments and from certain, pieces of data that show the opposite of the conclusions of that data. And I hate when they do that. And of course, they use bullshit arguments. Now, get this. Okay, so they were talking about the the Paris Climate Agreement. And William Happer is going to make just a ridiculous argument. Again, this is sort of the proof that somebody like that shouldn't even be allowed. I wouldn't say allowed, but those talking points are so absolutely ridiculous that having him to debate Bill Nye is adding a false equivalence to the weight of their arguments. Now, let me show you an example of one of these arguments that he's going to make against the Paris Climate Agreement. Let's watch.
William, let me ask you this question. The president will have to decide how to move forward on the Paris Climate Agreement, something that was a pact that was joined by 200 nations with the President Obama a little more than a year ago. The president during the campaign said that he would, quote unquote, cancel that, has not done it yet. How would you advise the president, if you had his ear, on how to move forward on the Paris Climate Agreement?
Well, you have to consider many things. I think on the face of it, it should be canceled. I could imagine that you might want to consider, ties with allies and things like that, that perhaps would make that not advisable. But I think it doesn't make any scientific sense. It's just a silly thing. I think it to me, it's very similar to the Munich agreements that Mr. Chamberlain signed.
Wow. Okay. Everybody, bear in mind, this may backfire. If you pull out of an international agreement, other countries may establish what are effectively tariffs on U.S.-produced goods and especially services.
So,
other
hold on for a second. Mr. Harper, I just want to make sure that you are comparing the Paris Climate Agreement to the appeasement policy?
It's definitely appeasement. Let me add also, you know, that as a group, scientists have often been wrong in the past.
I don't want to jump beyond that. How is this comparable to Neville Chamberlain's appeasement of Hitler? How was that an appropriate comparison?
It is an appropriate comparison because it was a treaty that was not going to do any good. This treaty also will not do any good. Anyone who looks at the results of doing what the treaty says can see that the effect on the Earth's climate is, even if you take the alarmist computer models, trivial. It will not make any difference, and yet it will cause enormous harm to many people.
Oh. So wait a minute. So trying to actually cut carbon emissions, that's going to harm a tremendous amount of people. How? Holy hell, man. Look, again, I'm not here to litigate the facts on this, okay? But what I'm here, why I'm showing you this is that this is the kind of people that they bring on to CNN who spout these kinds of talking points. You know why? Because, again, this gets ratings, right? See, the facts here, yes, they are incredibly important, but the real focus should be on how CNN seems to be treating this like it's entertainment. What they're doing is that they're booking guests to spar with each other on whether facts are true or not. This is sort of like bringing on a flat earther or somebody who thinks the sky is neon pink rather than blue. Well, I mean, it's all perspective, right? Oh, what do you mean? Carbon? No, not a pollutant. It's one of the earlier arguments he made in the same segment. Carbon's not a pollutant. No, it's green. It's greening the earth. It's good for... Yeah, but carbon may be essential for the atmosphere, but when you put too much in at one time, which was what we've been doing, in a very, very short amount of time, we've put tons and tons of carbon in the atmosphere. We're now at 410 ppms. All right, parts per million of carbon. Well, that's going to have an effect on the delicate balance of the atmosphere and create a greenhouse effect or intensify a greenhouse effect, trapping heat, warming the planet. I mean, this is simple. This guy, William Happer, is a scientist. Or at least he claims to be a scientist, but he seems to be getting a lot of money from fossil fuels. This is also akin to having somebody who, you know, believes that the sun revolves around the earth versus somebody who knows that no, it actually the sun revolves. We revolve around the sun. We are not living in a heliocentric universe. Look, it's ridiculous, and what this does is that it harms discourse, and that's the problem. When you don't agree on what's an actual fact, on what's actually happening, how are you supposed to have a debate? You just sit there and argue about, no, my facts are true, your facts are wrong. Well, actually, you don't have facts, because facts are only on one side. Facts are non-political, facts are non-partisan, and he even said that. The guy even said, well, you know, what are you talking about? Science doesn't take sides. Science isn't political. Well, then you're cherry-picking out scientific fact in order to make your argument. Therefore, you are making it political. Look, and it gives, like, this whole thing gives credibility to bad ideas. I mean, again, look, you've heard, they always talk about, oh, the debate. There's this big debate on climate change that's going on and the role that humans are playing in it. Well, look, it seems to me, from watching stuff like this, that the only debate is the one they're having on cable news. That's the only place they have the debate. They create these debates by bringing in a fossil fuel show and an engineer, in the case of Bill Nye, or a scientist or a Democratic politician to have these debates. And this so-called debate, also they can go back and say, hey, look, man, look at that debate. Again, this helps CNN's ratings because they're going to fight, helps the deniers, helps the fossil fuel companies, doesn't actually help science. Doesn't actually help anything. Regular people, they're still going to get hurt by climate change. Yeah, one of the arguments from the climate deniers, well, you know, if you don't let poor people burn coal in these developing countries, well, you're hurting them. Well, those same developing countries, a lot of them are at risk from the effects of climate change. It's not going to really matter if they can burn coal or not when the ocean swallows their island. Just saying. Or when a drought basically renders where they're living uninhabitable because there's no access to water, you can't grow food, and you have to leave. And of course, that creates a giant humanitarian crisis. They don't mention that. They just say, well, poor people should burn more coal. And since poor people are going to burn more coal, we should burn more coal. Or why don't you let the other developing countries develop, and we should get off the coal and get off the oil, get off the natural gas, because we're no longer developing. We have the technology. All we need is a political will to be able to switch over to solar energy. And in fact, we should do that. And then we should send solar energy and other alternative forms of energy over to those developing countries too, so they don't have to burn coal. This is something that they never talk about. This is a solution that they don't have because they don't want to have a solution. All they want to do is continue to shill for the fossil fuel companies so they can make more money. It's all about money. You have to follow the money. Instead of talking about any of those issues, all they want to do is they want to have a sparring match between what they're presenting as two valid and equal points of view. And I'm sorry, they are not equal. They are not valid. One is factual, the other is nonsense. And it's all about ratings. And look, that whole segment, that was supposed to be about the climate march. They didn't talk about that at all. So look, I'm not surprised at this point if anybody's if anybody's disappointed in CNN, because I think we're all disappointed in corporate media. They're not doing the right job. They're not doing the job that they're supposed to. Again, they split it down the middle, and they're doing false equivalents, and it helps to call them out. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.